Hi
Hello.
Natasha, how
Hi.
are you?
Good, good.
How are
I
you?
think I'm like 2 minutes early, but it's a happy surprise for people. Otherwise, we keep waiting. So,
Yeah, no, it's always good to be early, but we'll wait for a
correct.
couple of minutes for more people to join in, and then we'll get started.
Yes, sure.
So, how have you been, and how are the online classes coming along?
I'm doing good. So there's a class tomorrow, and there's prepping happening for the class and everything. So that is what is going on. And plus, it's raining here. You're also in Bombay, so the weather's also very gloomy. So it just makes you very lazy at times.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of like the rainy, gloomy weather.
I don't like it. It's just bad for
No?
me in terms of taking pictures also. There's no lighting, there's no natural lighting.
Yeah,
I'm like, what am I supposed to do
yeah.
now? So,
So, I feel like it helps me think better and stay more creative.
okay.
All
Hello,
right,
I
okay.
think
Is it
everybody
five
is
already?
joining.
Yeah, I think it's five, so we can get started.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, hi everyone. And the topic for today is to cook with alternate grains. Um, Alternate grains. Okay, so the topic for the day is to cook with alternate grains. And alternate grains is something which is very close to my heart and very close to us at Jiva and everything we do here. And I know that you believe very strongly in alternate grains, alternate flours, cooking with a variety of different ingredients very much as well. Uh,
Correct.
so So I thought that we'd start the live with a short introduction about you, your journey at MasterChef, and what all are you up to now. And then we'll probably move on to like a short introduction about us at Jiva, and then we can kick into the topic.
Okay, so hello everybody who's joined in and who's trickling, still they're trickling inside. So my journey, I think most of the people know that I have a venture called House of Millets. So that was obviously before MasterChef, where
Okay.
make desserts using all of these alternate grains, say ragi, jawar, quinoa, oats, flour. And the reason why I started it was because I noticed that there's a need for it in my family itself. Like there was some health issues my dad was facing. So the doctor was like, listen, there's a family history. So you have to start controlling and you have to eat right. That is when I realized that, precaution is better than cure. It shouldn't happen that when I am 40, 45, 50, that time I start going on a diet or doing stuff for my health. It's better I start, having all these good, healthy stuff from now on so that later I do not face those problems. And when I looked around, I realized that okay, there are only two things which I need to stop, which is basically refined flour and whole wheat flour to make that switch easier because there are plethora of other grains available and they are they're local. A lot of them now, like because of brands like you, because of brands like Jiwa, they're more easily available as well. And you can buy these organic products. So that is why I thought, why not use these and create something unique. So I mainly started with desserts because I find that people find desserts to be more complicated. And later on, after MasterChef, I realized okay, there's a need to do savory as well. So I cook a lot of savory stuff. I went on a gluten-free challenge for 30 days. I still continue that. So that has been my journey pretty much, and I've seen great results out of it as well.
So you started House of Millets before you entered MasterChef. That's
Correct,
interesting
correct.
because I always thought that you must have started the brand after. So when did you start House of Millets?
The House of Millets was started in 2019, last year, and MasterChef also happened last year around this time in December. So everything happened very quickly, but the trials for House of Millets happened like over a span of 6, 7 months because it's really difficult to nail a recipe right. And that's why, I have a mission. It's not only about just selling, selling, selling. It's also about teaching people how to do that, because the more you teach people, the more you empower them, the more they will learn. There'll be awareness in the market. And I think that's why when I spoke to you guys and you all mentioned that, okay, we'll be cooking with alternate grains, we'll be doing recipes, spread more awareness about it. I was up the bandwagon. I was like, this is a mission very close to my heart, and this is something I really want to do.
True. So I think our journey in many ways has been similar. I started Jiwa in 2013 after I finished my MBA in Boston. And I have a family business background in food.
Okay.
So, as a part of the family business, I do a lot of manufacturing of a variety of food products, but primarily wheat and wheat-based products. So I make things like biscuits, breads, and we also grind wheat into finer flour. I run a flour mill. So I think as a kid, I was always intrigued by food, and I was always intrigued by health and fitness and wellness. And I wanted to do something in the health food space. And I think very early on, even I realized the excessive dependence on grains and ingredients like wheat and rice. And I always wondered that why people don't cook enough with alternate grains.
Correct.
So I think that has kind of been our idea since the beginning, you know, to make alternate grains more popular, more mainstream, more commercially viable. So last 7 years, we've been selling a bunch of different things. So, for instance, we sell quinoa, we sell oats, we sell a host of different flours, including jawar, bajri, ragi. And I think it really has become the need of the hour and the buzzword of the
It
hour.
has.
You know, almost every nutritionist, every dietitian, every fitness challenge is now talking about going gluten free or a plant-based diet or introducing these kind
Correct.
of ingredients and grains in your diet. And I think they just make your diet a lot more richer, you know,
Correct.
when you add in
And
different foods.
there's not a lot of things you have to replace. Like there are only these two,
True,
three things you have to replace, and ultimately you'll get the same flavor. With people, I think the mindset is that healthy cannot be tasty. Well, I think till the time they don't try it, till the time they don't take that plunge, till the time there's not that much awareness about it, they won't realize that it can be equally tasty as well and good for the
true.
health.
In fact, that is the dilemma that we always face. Every single, person comes back to us and they don't know how to cook with these things. They don't know
Correct.
how to cook
Correct.
with quinoa. Other than the four or five basic things, they don't know what else to make with oats. And when it comes to
Exactly.
ragi, jawari, or bajri, other than using it as a roti or a flatbread,
Roti.
people really don't know what else much can they do with it. And that's why I thought that, that is really a topic that we need to speak more about. So let's jump right into it. And let's talk about some of these different grains, millets, flours, and what all can we really cook with it. And then as and how the questions come in, we'll address the questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So in case anybody of y'all have a particular question, if you have earlier tried cooking with these grains, with millets, ragi, jawar, bajra, kodo, proso, or with other alternate grains like quinoa, oats, barley, and etc., you can put down your questions, and we both would be happy to answer them. But the majority of the questions which I usually get in my DMs or which people usually ask me is obviously number one, that in India, with firstly, if I have to start with millets, would be that we eat a jawar ka bhakri or we eat a bajra ka rotla, but those are like very fat flatbreads. Okay, they are not that soft
True,
like a roti, and we don't get the
true,
same texture, and they are very dry. So what am I supposed to do for that? So I think that's the number one
true,
question and the number one problem people have. So a
true.
very quick, like very easy solution or a very easy hack for it is what I do at my house to make a jawari roti or a bajra roti or a ragi roti is that I put the water on boil. Okay, so it has to be boiling water, and in the boiling
Okay.
water you add your flour in and you mix it. And then you leave it aside for resting for 10 to 15 minutes, and then the dough becomes very malleable.
True.
you can roll it, and then you can make your soft rotis, and it will fluff up like a soft roti, which a lot of people don't know, because if you just add normal water to your flour and then you knead it, the only thing that you can make is a flatbread, because it will keep tearing apart. Another
Absolutely.
quick hack would be, you can add a little bit, very little bit of starch, or very little
Okay.
bit of oats flour. So you can always do 50-50%. Okay, so you can have
True.
50% of millet flour and you can have 50% of oats flour, because oats or quinoa as well, they are very close to whole wheat and very close to rice flour texture. Hence, when you add
True.
50-50% of both of them with the millet flour, the texture changes, the taste changes. You won't, because millets have a slightly earthier taste as well, right? They have more earthy
True.
notes. They have a certain flavor of their own. Some people don't like those
True.
flavors. So it's important. What you do is you add 50-50. So that is another great
True.
hack which you can do.
Yeah. So in fact, we get these questions as well. And so what I tell a lot of people is that, say, take for example a Bajiri flour. Now,
Yeah,
obviously, a Bajiri flour does not make a roti like a wheat flour. It's not going to be
correct,
as puffy. It's not going to be chewy. It's not going to have the same texture. So one very simple thing to do is just to use a 50-50, as you just mentioned. You
yeah,
know, it's not about replacing wheat flour 100% from your diet. It's about adding other ingredients. It's about adding other grains and
correct,
cereals.
correct,
So as long as you do a 50-50, it will make a reasonably good roti. And you would be introducing bajri in your diet as well. So,
correct.
which is
Because
very
I
rich
think
in
it's
fiber.
also, yeah, very, very easy for people to make that switch to a healthier lifestyle. Start with baby steps.
True.
So try swapping it
Absolutely.
50-50, because I started with 50-50 in my regular breads as well. Like, if suppose I'm making a bread or making a cake, I would add 50%. I would substitute it with the millet flour or with the quinoa flour or with the oats flour. And then finally,
Yeah.
when I got the confidence that I can work more, I switched to 100%.
Yeah. And some bit of the answer is also in the processing. So, for instance, we have done a lot of research on this and we use a particular variety of these millets, and we mill it in a certain way, because of which
Okay,
our rotis turn out softer, they puff better, and they're more chewy as comparable to many others in the
correct.
market. So I think a lot really depends on the variety of the particular millet, whether it's organic or not, and the milling process. I think if you check all those boxes, along with
Yeah.
using, as you mentioned, lukewarm or hot water, it does make a reasonably good roti. And if not, then you can always do a 50-50 split with wheat flour, and that should do the job. It's a lot better than using 100% wheat flour day in and day out over and over again.
It is. And I think, like you mentioned about the milling and the grinding process, one more thing which people often mistake, and they often ask me is that, ma'am, I have quinoa or I have oats. How about I grind it and I use it instead of the flour? And to them, I always say that no, the texture will be different. And you'll be
Yes,
doing a lot of wastage. You'll end up with a lot of wastage, because at your own house, in a mixer grinder, you won't be able to grind that really well.
true,
There are a lot of recipes you can do with whole quinoa and whole oats. And then there are different recipes
true.
which you do with the flour, the quinoa flour and the oats flour. And the good thing about your brand is that you have these different varieties of oats available, different varieties of
Yeah,
quinoa available, which, in current times people are not even aware about. So maybe if they start
true,
incorporating that, yeah, that will also be
true.
good.
In fact, the way we mill these ingredients into flour is very different from, say, me milling this at home in a mixer grinder. We have a
Correct.
specific process. We use the stone grinding process, and it's ground at a specific temperature. And after it's been ground, we sieve it, and we make sure that the particle size of the flour is one which is comparable to wheat flour, comparable to wheat atta. So
Correct.
when you're eating it,
Correct.
the texture of the roti will be as similar as possible to a wheat roti. So that does not happen
Exactly.
when you just mill it or pulverize it at home in a mixer grinder. So it is different. And stone grinding by itself is a completely different process. It adds a different aroma, a different taste to the flour and therefore to the rotis.
Correct, correct.
So
And I think
that's that.
somebody's asking which is the easiest millet to work with. So if I have to say the easiest millet to work with, for me, my favorite is Jawar. Okay,
Jawari.
that's my easiest
Yeah,
millet because the taste is very similar to a whole wheat and it doesn't have
yeah,
a lot of earthy, nutty flavor. And if
yeah.
not millet, then another flour, which is like a alternate grain flour, would be oats flour or a quinoa flour.
Oats.
Although I won't use quinoa flour as 100% whole because quinoa flour will have a certain bitter aftertaste. So I will always do
Yes.
50-50 with quinoa and oats. So these three are my go-to flours. And whenever people will ask
Yeah.
me replacements, these are the three flours which are on my top list that, this
Absolutely. So
jawar, oats
Jawari is
and
pretty
quinoa is something you
versatile
can
and
use.
pretty easy to cook with. Jawar works really well. And Bajiri and Ragi are more difficult. Ragi has a different color, a different texture, but Jawari is definitely more versatile. And in fact, even when you look at millets,
Correct.
Jawar is actually far more popular than the other ones. And one of the reasons is because Jawar
It
can
is.
be
It is.
substituted, uh, you know, uh, can
Yes.
be substituted to wheat flour much more easily than many other grains. But
Correct.
talking about the others, Ragi is very rich in calcium, you know.
It is. It is. So for people who are following a vegan diet or a plant-based diet, for them to include ragi in their diet is really good. And another ingredient to include in your diet is whole quinoa, not the quinoa flour, because whole quinoa is loaded with proteins. Okay. And somebody just
Yes,
asked that what are the fun quinoa recipes that we can do with whole quinoa? Because even I
yes,
get this question a lot. They're like, listen, I've bought quinoa and I've kept it, but I don't know how to cook with it. I don't know what recipe to make with it. So there are a lot of different recipes. One easy tip would be wherever possible you think that rice can be used,
yes,
substitute it with quinoa. So you can make different flavors of pulaus, you can make different flavors of biryanis, and
absolutely.
not even that, you can add it the whole quinoa. You can add it in your burger patties or your normal tikkis. You can add it in your appams, and you can also add it in your salads. You can do granola bars, you can do frittatas. So for that texture crunch, it's very important. And I've seen that Jiwa has this tri-color quinoa, which is again the
Yes,
red, white, and black quinoa. Which if I use and if I offer it to somebody who's very resistant to eating healthy, even when they see the colors of it, they'll be like, okay, let me give it a try. So even the tri-color
absolutely.
quinoa, because it's a mixture of different ones, there are different textures going on, there are different flavors. Because the black one is a little more earthy, the red one is nutty,
Yeah,
the white one becomes a little softer, moisture. So when you add the whole together in a salad or in any other recipe, it looks good and it tastes even better.
yeah. I mean, in my opinion, quinoa is a magic grain. It really is a magic ingredient. It's very rich in protein. It's got all the 9 essential amino acids, which not too many
Correct.
foods have.
Yes.
And now is grown right here in India, which has actually made it far more affordable than what it used to be. And there are a lot of experiments happening now with growing quinoa in India. And year by year, we are seeing the output increase, and we're seeing more and more farmers take to it at the farm level. In terms of cooking, we say the same thing to our customers. The one sentence answer is that it cooks like rice. So,
Correct.
you can make yourself a quinoa biryani, and I would argue that it turns out better than a rice biryani. You know, you could make yourself a quinoa risotto. You could do pulaus as you
Yeah.
mentioned. So, pretty much practically any recipe where you use rice, you could replace that with quinoa. A lot of people find the texture of quinoa different. And I understand that because it's something new. You're not used to it. You're used to the texture and the look and the feel of cooked rice. So what I tell them is that, why not start with adding 20% or so quinoa in your rice? You
Correct.
know, so say, for example, if you're used to eating rice at lunch, add a 20% quinoa in there. It's still going to look and feel like rice, but is going to be nutritively much more sound.
They
So
can even add cooked quinoa in their cakes as well. Just like a regular cake
Okay.
recipe, you add cooked quinoa or like in a dhokla or in a uttapam. So even for that nice bite,
Yeah.
those texture, just to get started, just to get familiarizing yourself with the flavor.
Yeah. And talking about the flour, the quinoa flour can be used, to make dosas. It can be used, to make even idlis. So it can practically be used, in a lot of these Indian preparations.
Correct, correct. It can be. It just the quick hack is wherever you feel rice is to be used or rice is used or even rice flour is used, you replace it either with quinoa or you replace it with even oats flour or whole oats as well. And I think
True.
we have got like a few questions. So Neha is asking how can we add quinoa in rice? So Neha, what you do is you have to cook quinoa separately and you have to cook rice separately and then you mix both of them together in whatever, suppose you're making a lemon rice, after that you combine the two and then add your vaghar or the flavorings, whatever it is. And to cook quinoa, my simple tip is that you have 1:2 ratio where one is quinoa, two is water, and you put it in a pan, you cover it, don't let the steam escape, and cook it for exactly 20 minutes. And after that, you just fluff it up with a fork. That is how you'll get a really nice fluffy quinoa. So this is like a very good cooking quinoa to the perfection tip. So you won't end up with a
Yeah, and
mushy
it takes
quinoa as
only
well.
about 15 minutes.
Correct,
Quinoa
correct.
cooks in about 15 minutes. The tricolor variety takes a bit longer, because
Yes.
the red and the black quinoa takes a bit longer. So that might take about, say, 25 minutes or so. But the tricolor makes a really good looking tropical salad, you know.
It
Uh,
does, and it looks really pretty. So if you want your kids to start eating them, then that is the one which you should start
yeah, it
making.
just looks good on the
And
plate. It looks more
I think
inviting.
before it wasn't available so easily, but right now because
Yeah,
of brands like yours, it's very easily
yeah,
available online. So whoever wants to
yeah.
buy, they can just simply go online. So if you're in Bombay, I believe through your website jiwa.in, you deliver in Bombay, and
Yeah,
places
we do
other
same day
than
deliveries in
Bombay,
Bombay.
it's via Amazon.
Amazon, yes. So honestly, for these kind of products, the best place to go is go online, you know,
Correct.
because these ingredients, these products are yet not mainstream, and because of which they are not commonly available. You might not find it at your regular grocer. So the best place to look will always be online. And where I source most of my gourmet ingredients is Amazon. Amazon
Correct.
really has become like the hub for all kind of modern cooking, and
It
sourcing
has.
ingredients for that.
It has, and it's a
So
great
that's the place
time
to
to
look at.
be online as well, like because people are not stepping out so much, and
Yes,
everybody's buying
yes.
online. So I think it's a great time to have an online presence and reach everywhere possible.
It's actually a great time to do some cooking. It's a great time to experiment with alternate foods, and it's
Yes,
a great time to buy them online because all of this stuff is available online when you can't go out. So this really is, an episode when you can make that shift. Otherwise in day-to-day life, we all get so busy. We don't have the time to cook. We don't have the time to think beyond the obvious. But this is really a time when, you can step back and think about what's healthy, what's not, how can you enhance your overall meal experience?
correct, correct. And I think since we have now collaborated together, so people whoever are watching, and then you'll know that there's a lot in store coming up. There's a lot of recipes that I'm going to be
Yeah,
doing using the Jiwa products, and which are
yeah,
your millet flours, your whole quinoas, your oats. So stay
yeah,
tuned for all the recipes which I will be sharing. And
yeah,
I hope you guys like those recipes and you start making that healthier switch, like, with tiny baby
yeah,
steps right now, because no better time than starting now.
yeah. Tell me, talking about oats, like, do you use a lot of oats in your baking? I know that you bake a lot
I
of cakes.
I do use a lot of oats in my baking, both oats flour as well and whole oats as well. The different varieties of oats available. My go-to ones are rolled oats and the quick cooking oats. So quick cooking ones, I would use it in my ice cream bases to make them a little bit thicker, or my porridges or my overnight oats pudding or stuff like that. And the rolled oats for my cookies, or adding it on top of my breads, for the crunch, or adding it inside. So this is how I will use my oats in my baking.
Yeah. So oats is again something which has kind of caught on only in the last couple of years. I think if you rewind to maybe 10 years ago, you and me were not using oats at all. We were not consuming oats at all. So it really has picked up in these last couple of years, and it has become more mainstream now. And I think the advantage with oats is that because it's available in a few different varieties, and there are enough and more recipes out there of how to cook with them, there's a lot that you can do. So, for instance,
Correct.
like, granolas are usually made with the rolled oats variety. Porridges are usually made with instant oats. I see a lot of people doing the overnight oats jars nowadays, and
Yeah.
they taste well and they are very simple to make.
You can make
So,
amazing
oats
oats
is
pancakes as well. Those come out
true,
really great as
true,
well.
true.
And even a
And
regular biscuit, like I mentioned earlier, oats, quinoa, and jawar are my go-to flours if I want
true,
somebody to convince and get into healthy eating, because they're very close.
true.
Others have a bit taste, which is an acquired taste, so it needs a little
Yes.
bit of time to for them to get used to the taste. But these three are the go-to ones, either grain or either flour.
Okay, tell me what all can we make other than a roti or some kind of an Indian flatbread? What all can we make with ragi and bajri? Because that seems to be a big question mark in everyone's minds.
So I personally, I make cakes out of ragi bajri. I make breads out of ragi bajri. So
Okay,
I take it as a challenge that let me show you what I can do. So wherever
okay,
you think whole wheat is used, or wherever refined flour is used, which is everywhere. Say samosas, say kachoris, say even like your nachos, lavash, and anywhere where you use whole wheat or refined flour, I will add bajra or ragi. Bajra a little
okay,
lesser because it's a little denser in taste, but ragi I would use whole ragi, and bajra I would use 50% bajra with 50% jawari. So that is the combination I
okay.
do. And like the tip I mentioned earlier, adding boiling water to it, it becomes super
Yeah,
malleable. If not boiling water, combining with another flour, suppose oats or quinoa flour or jawar flour as well, it becomes very easy to knead it and give it that shape and structure. That is what I would do. And I would avoid deep frying
okay,
because they end
okay.
up tearing apart. So I would go to baking. So I would bake them in oven, or I would bake in an air fryer or so. So those are the
Yeah.
tips and tricks you have to keep in mind as well.
The interesting thing
Yeah,
about,
and
um,
I did make pastas out of it for my Masterchef
okay,
audition. So
oh, that'll be
the
amazing.
first
That'll be
audition, the
amazing.
judges round, I made a millet pasta with ragi, jawar, bajra, and that's all. Nothing else. No
That is
starches, no
really
rice
cool.
flour, nothing. So that is something which I did, and I think that is something which the judges saw and they got impressed, because nobody. It's very difficult to nail 100% millet pasta, but that is also something that is. So you have to. If
Nice.
nothing's impossible, okay, nothing's impossible. You
Yeah,
have to keep doing trials till the time you're not aware of what's available. You wouldn't try it, right? So you need to buy the product. You need to try it. You have to get acquired. You have to get used to the taste, and only then
yeah,
you will be able to get the results.
yeah.
Hi,
The
Chef
interesting
Altavich.
thing to
Chef
me.
Altavich, I don't have to teach you. He's
Okay. I was saying that, like a lot of people assume that when it comes to millets, like say Jawar and Bajri and Ragi, people assume that this is something which is only consumed in, say, certain pockets of the country, and this is something new, you know. But actually, none of these ingredients are new. They've been around for thousands of
they all are
years.
very native. Correct, correct.
Also, none of it's not like they are only consumed in, say, certain parts of the country. Each of these millets are actually used in the length and breadth of the country. Whether it's ragi or bajri, it's used in the north, it is used in the south as well. And,
Correct.
there are local names, there are different names for the same thing, but they're actually consumed across the country, and not just in India. They are consumed world over. Something like
Correct.
Jawari is actually quite popular even in the US and even in South America. you know so this stuff is not Indian. This stuff is not something that only people in the villages eat just because it's cheap. This is something which has actually been around forever. This is something which
It
is
is. It
consumed
is.
world over. Yeah, just
I
that
know.
it's
And
not
I think
very
we should be
popular,
proud of
and
the
that's the idea.
fact that something Indian is being now started consumed by the Western countries. The reason obviously it's great in health, it is affordable as well, it's locally available, and it's also like because of brands like you now spreading more awareness about it, sharing recipes, and not just sharing how to make rotis out of it, but like collaborating with people and doing fun stuff, unique stuff. I think that's really great, and I'm super
Yeah,
excited to be part of this collaboration and churn out
yeah,
amazing recipes for people. So really look
yeah.
forward to that, and also people who are watching, I think you must stay tuned because we have a lot of fun stuff in store.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I'm sure, like in the next 1 month to come, we will be sharing a lot of ideas, a lot of
We
recipes of
will.
how people can cook with these products. And I'm looking forward to that whole interaction. All right, Natasha. So I guess we'll end the live here, and
Yeah.
we'll keep in touch on Insta. And I'm looking forward to some good recipes coming from your end.
We will. And thank you everybody who joined in and who's watching the live right now. In case you have any questions, there's any recipe that you do which is unique to you using alternate grains, put them down in the comments below. I will definitely go through them and try replying you all and trying to create something fun out of it and resolving your questions. So thank you
We
so
will
much
also
and happy.
Yeah, we will also be saving the live on our page. So if anybody has questions for you or for us, they can just drop them down in the comments on the IGTV that we save post the live. So they can always take the comments and the questions offline, and we'd be happy to address them.
We'll do that. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you
Natasha.
so
Thank
much.
you so much
Bye
for this.
guys.
It was nice chatting.
Bye. Bye Raghav.
Bye.
Same here.
Bye. See you.